Good morning and welcome back to the One Celtic Fans View. There are conflicting reports in the media about Celtic transfer positions and the Celtic transfer negotiations, and there's two journalists kind of saying completely opposite things. But I still stand. I did say at the beginning of the window players that we needed. Brendan Rodgers has spoken about it. Brendan Rodgers said after the game last night, we know the areas that we need to improve in. Two wingers, a striker, a left back. Even though we brought in Inamura, he's not one for the current future. So we always knew we were needing a left back. Two wingers we've known for a long time. But anyway, Brendan Rodgers and these men are obviously going to have to sit round the table, or will it be just a phone call from Lennoxtown, or will Brendan Rodgers have been in Celtic Park yesterday? I'd have loved to have been a fly on the wall in that meeting. And there was a ridiculous allegation last night that Brendan Rodgers told the players not to score. Do enough so that they can't score. This was allegedly coming out from a leak from Lennoxtown. I don't believe a word of it, but you know, it is how crazy the situation has got. So, the first one that we need to talk about is coming from Stephen McCowan. He said, one report claims that Celtic have ramped up the pursuit of the playmaker for the go-ahead Chiefs. Jacob, we understand that this is not the case, and the last contact between the two parties was last month. In the market, Celtic are in the market for players after selling Nico Kuhn, blah, 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 Jota injured. Despite upping their original proposal to 1.75 million. So he's saying that there's been no contact. Yet yesterday, Sky News reporter last night come out and said something completely different. Celtic eye winger and striker reinforcements from Anthony Joseph. We all know about the ongoing situation with Michael Ange Bilwisha. It came out last week, it came out a couple of days ago, that deal was almost done. The medical had been booked, but something going on in the background between him and his current club put paid to that. Celtic had booked the medical, they had got everything ready, they were hoping to get the player in before the game the other night. But Celtic couldn't get the deal done, and I think it's because of financial obligations by the club to the player. It tends to be the case, and that's the kind of thing that holds deals up. Celtic can't do anything about it, it's out with their hands. So he goes on to say that a fee in the region of 5 million will be enough to secure the 24-year-old. We all know that. Celtic have yet to replace Kyogo Furiashi, left for Rennes and has now moved to Birmingham. Callum Osman, Shin Yamada were both brought in but appear to be project signings. Definitely. Callum Osman is not... I mean, I don't even think that he's as good as Daniel Cummins, and that's saying something. But he was brought in as a replacement for Daniel Cummins, and he was promised first-team football. I think he'll be given a chance to get as much first-team football as possible between now and the winter window, and then I think Celtic will farm him out in the winter window. What does it say for Johnny Kenny? Johnny Kenny, he's third choice striker at best. If Celtic are trying to bring in another striker, I think that Johnny Kenny may be put out on loan until Celtic will give Adam Ida this season, and if it doesn't work out, he'll be punted. It's as simple as that. He's a player that is lacking, and I don't know how, but he doesn't seem to be listening to what Brendan Rodgers is telling him to do. I mean, I said before the game the other night, the first thing that you do with Adam is you come here, big man, and you give him a little cuddle and you say, right, just stay in the box. Make a nuisance of yourself. That's where you're at your best. Stay in the box, stay in the 6-yard box. When the defenders come out, you just sit right next to the defenders, make a nuisance of yourself, make some runs. But he didn't. He come the way back into midfield. He came and he was moving out of position. And you could understand he's trying to get into positions to make the runs, diagonal runs. But if the ball's not coming into him, because let's face it, the wingers that we've got at Celtic just now are going, well, where is Adam? We don't know what runs he's going to make. They're not passing it in. He got very, very little ammunition the other night. I don't think that you can count on one hand how many times he actually had a shot on goal. Never mind get into positions to shoot at goal. And that's the problem that we have at Celtic. He's not getting into positions and the wingers just aren't getting the balls into him. It's as simple as that. But anyway, the whole Dyson Maeda situation. When the club are looking for another striker, can they bring in new wingers to allow Dyson to play the number 9 with Adam Ida and Yamada and Johnny Kenny as backup? That's a lot of backups. I mean, where does Callum Osman fit in at that? I still think that Johnny Kenny may be the make weight in this window. The fact that he has signed that new deal, I think Brendan, and the reason I'm saying that is Brendan Rodgers said toward the end of last season, we were unsure what to do with Johnny Kenny at this point. Do we put him out on loan? He came in towards the end of last season. He had some fantastic football, and you're thinking, yeah, there's a player in there. He's maybe not Chris Sutton level-ish yet, but he is only young. So Brendan Rodgers said then, he might actually go out on loan. And I think that will still be the case. It could be a late one in this window. If he doesn't go out loan this window, I think he'll go out in the next one. Because we're not going to be playing 2 up front. It would take a massive change of heart from Brendan Rodgers to start playing 2 strikers up front. And you're not going to sit with all these strikers on the bench, because then that takes away from the midfield that you're going to have on the bench, and are you going to drop a defender off the bench? Not a chance. Not Brendan's style. Anyway, bringing back Kieran Tierney to the club was a big, massive boost. Greg Taylor left. A lot of people say thank goodness. But at this point, he's fitter than Kieran Tierney. Kieran Tierney coming in, we always knew he wasn't going to be able to play 90 minutes straight away. Brendan Rodgers has spoken about the fact that it's all about managing his fitness and getting him up to 90 minutes. He hasn't played 90 minutes consistently over the course of the last couple of seasons due to ongoing injuries. So you don't want to burn out Kieran Tierney. We didn't bring another left back in. Inamura wasn't a Brendan Rodgers signing. Inamura was a player that was brought in by the board. Even Brendan Rodgers said that. He's only been playing professional football for 1 year, so he's not up to it. Celtic target wingers, says Anthony Joseph. He says that Celtic target wingers, striker and left back. Well, we've all known that. We've known that since the beginning of the summer. None of the information that is out there today or yesterday, last night, is new information. You know, people are saying that we're not looking at people. Well, we are. This is the list of players that we all knew that we needed right at the back of at the start of the summer, which seemed a long, long time ago. Back in May, it was a long, long time ago. That, God, it feels like there's been a whole season since we lost the Scottish Cup. But anyway, since Alistair Johnston got taken out, and he done his hamstring, it looks like we're going to be in for a player to cover his position. The look on his face, he knew that he's going to be out for months. Players know. And the fact that Kieran Tierney looked at him and Kieran went, I know how long you're going to be out for, mate. You know, you've just missed half a season. Celtic will need to dip into the market. If they don't, we're going to go with Tony Ralston, which is okay. He does it at international level, but Champions League level, it's not making the squad stronger. Colby Donovan is an 18-year-old coming through for the B team. He was going to go out on loan. That will be up in the air this morning as Brendan Rodgers decides what to do with him. Do we keep him and stifle his career due to him not getting game time? Because let's face it, an 18-year-old with no experience in the SPFL, he's not going to be thrown in at the deep, is he? Is he good enough to be back up to Tony Ralston? Yes. But is he good enough for the Champions League? It's a level far too high, that step. If it's too high for Shin Yamada, and Shin Yamada's only had 1 year's football experience, it's far too much for young Donovan, who's had a whole lifetime of coming through the ranks at Celtic. But it is strange that the two journalists are coming out with two different things, and there is also the Calvin Steggs situation. You know, we've not replaced Kuhn. We're sitting with a chunk of money in the bank, and I believe myself, I still say, I've been saying we'll get 4 players in before the end of the window. I says we would get 5. We brought one in, and the loanee player that we're still to see from Man City. Yes, we've still to see him kick one ball in anger for Celtic. He was one of the 5 that I said we would bring in. I didn't name him exactly, but I knew that we were going to bring in a defender. We needed another defender in. Brendan Rodgers didn't trust Trusty and doesn't have 100% conviction of Scales when it comes to the Champions League, especially because Trusty was faster than Scales in the Champions, and that's why Trusty was brought in. Trusty's just not that player. I was kind of hoping that You know, bringing someone else in would maybe motivate Trusty to do a Liam Scales like what he did a few years ago and boost him up and get him playing a bit better. But it's obviously not happening on the training pitch. Brendan Rodgers sees what the players are putting in shift-wise on the training pitch on a daily basis. We don't. We can only go by what we see on the playing field. And let's face it, there were a lot of players who looked as if they've got one eye on the exit. Brendan Rodgers did say, look, there are players that are unsure whether they will be here at the end of the transfer window. But whilst they are here, they'll get paid at the end of the month. The money goes into the bank every month, and it'll be Celtic FC that come up on your bank statement. So whilst you're here, you give 110%. They forgot about that the first half of the game, didn't they? They just gave out 10%. So like they give Celtic an IOU. But anyway, it's going to be an interesting one with the press conferences. Brendan Rodgers will again be asked about transfers, and he is getting fed up a bit. I think we've all been getting fed up a bit. That's why I've not really done any transfer videos, because, I mean, it's a situation that is fluid. Now that the board would have sat, and we all see the faces that they sat with during the game the other night, and Brendan Rodgers also, and then those two men sitting going, well, that was a gamble that didn't pay off, eh, mate? It's an interesting one. Only Celtic can be so far ahead, and we've seen it over the years. Only Celtic can be so far ahead, and then we put the brakes on things. We put the brakes on things under so many managers in the past. It is a reoccurring thing. You know, we put the brakes on Brendan Rodgers his first time round by not signing McGinn, allowing him to go down south. We put the brakes on Ange Postecoglou when he decided that he wanted to bring in more expensive players, and he was told absolutely not a fucking chance are we going to spend 10 to 15 million, 20 million on players. And Ange said, well, why not? We could turn them into 25, 30 plus £1 million players. It's all about perspective. It's all about where you see the club. We've seen this story being told out before. Ange wasn't as articulate and it wasn't as pointed fingered as Brendan Rodgers has been, but the signs have been there for years. And I just hope that one of these two managers will do an interview over the next 2 or 3 years to just lay bare and just tell the truth exactly what's going on at Celtic and how they see the club as a business. And it is a business, and we all know it's a business. And yes, we can give the club plaudits when it's sitting banking all the money, but the money hasn't come from the clever actions of anything that the board have done. Not at all. Well, they sit and give themselves a little pat on the back, and whilst they look up and look at their bank balance and go, yeah, it's cracking, isn't it? Dermot's going to give us our 300 grand bonus this year. The money's come from the hard-earned fan, you, that spends the money. We made 30 million on merchandise. You're not getting people out with Celtic buying that merchandise. 30 million on merchandise. We spend money on tickets for the Champions League. We spend money on season tickets, all paid up front to Celtic in the bank. You know, the money from the Champions League, that's the bonus. The club know that as a bonus. Yes, it's added to the coffers of the bank balance, but ultimately it's the fans who pay out every single week. And are the fans getting value for money? That's the question that you need to ask. Before we start pointing the fingers at everyone, you know, let's just all get together and try and be united as a fan base. Because together, united, we can do a lot more. And let's just back the team. Sack the board. You can't sack the board. It's impossible. There's no one. And plus that fucking Irish Dermot Desmond's is never going to sell his shares, is he? Anyway, make sure you join me tonight at 8 p.m. Celtic Part Time. We'll do a live and we'll talk about, hopefully, Celtic. Maybe I've booked in a medical or two for tomorrow. Do you think it will do it? Tell me in the comments. On that note, have a fantastic day, Celtic fans, wherever you are, all around the world.